What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Piranha 3DD, which is also known simply as Piranha Double D. So this movie was enjoyable, but it had a different overall tone than Piranha 3D, and I was much more of a fan of Piranha 3D than this one, but this one was still enjoyable. It was by no means a bad movie in my opinion. I had a fun time with this, but yeah, it was definitely a step down from the previous movie in the franchise. But anyways, let me give you all a little plot summary before I get too deep into the review. So this movie takes place at a water park, which I actually thought was a pretty fun setting. And you have this girl, Maddie, and her mother was the owner of this water park, and it's been in the family forever. Her mother passed away, and now her Maddie and her stepdad Chet are the co-owners of the water park. Chet owns 51% and Maddie only owns 49%. So Chet has all the say. That's how it goes in any business endeavor. Like if you own even just 51%, you have more of a say. So Chet turns the water park into this adult themed water park where he replaces all the lifeguards with strippers, and then there's this one attraction where it's this little pool where like it's just a bunch of nude women in there, and there's cameras, and Maddie is not happy with this. She thinks it's disgusting and just kind of sleazy, so she's not having it. But anyways, all while this is going on, we see news footage that's covering Lake Victoria from the previous movie, and basically after the events of Piranha 3D, they completely shut down Lake Victoria, and it's assumed that it was an isolated incident, but it was not, because basically we see a couple instances where the piranhas are attacking people in other lakes because they have been traveling in underground lakes to these other lakes. So it was not an isolated incident. The piranhas are spreading to other lake systems, and basically, Chet, like I said, he's a kind of a shady guy, so he's in cahoots with this one dirty cop, and he's like paying him off. So what he's doing is he's pumping water from an underground lake in order to get water for his water park, so he won't have to pay a water bill. And we all know in these entries like Piranha 3D and Piranha 3DD, they're prehistoric piranhas that exist in these underground lakes. So when he is drilling and creates this, when he's drilling and gets this like well water from this underground lake, the piranhas are siphoned into the water park, and they start attacking the guests, and all hell breaks loose. So that is the basic plot summary. So the first thing that I want to get into is kind of something that I touched on earlier. So in my opinion, the previous movie, Piranha 3D, had the perfect balance of horror and comedy. This movie, Piranha 3DD, the tone was completely different. So if if you're a fan of Piranha 3D, going into this, it does it feels like a sequel, but it's like totally it's totally different. So you know, I feel like Piranha 3D was a horror movie with comedic elements. Piranha 3DD is a comedy with some horror elements sprinkled in, and it's kind of it's kind of like the case of you know, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So, you know, I like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4, but, you know, of course, I like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 better. That's one of the best movies in the franchise. And that movie introduced a little bit of comedy with Freddy Krueger's character, but it was a horror movie first, and there was a perfect balance of horror and comedy. That's how I feel like Piranha 3D is like, could be compared to Nightmare on Elm Street 3 in that regard. And then this is like Nightmare on Elm Street, like Piranha 3DD is almost like Nightmare on Elm Street 4, where it's like they took, you know, the comedic elements from Piranha 3D and they just amped them up, and they got extremely weird with it, where it's like, you know, that balance that existed in Piranha 3D no longer exists in Piranha 3DD. It's, you know, the comedy is, even though the comedy was over the top in that one, the comedy in this is extremely over the top. It's this movie, like, this movie, you can't really take it seriously. Like the other movie, you could, even though there was some like wacky, goofy stuff, you could pretty much take the overall movie seriously. This movie you can't take seriously, and it is like Nightmare on Elm Street 4, where they went crazy with the comedy and all the weird stuff and all the wacky stuff. Like I said, I still enjoy that movie. I still enjoy this movie, but it's just a completely different feel than the last movie. And the last movie really did have a perfect balance. This goes a little crazy with the comedy, but for the most part, I actually did enjoy a lot of the comedy. A lot of the jokes landed for me. Some of the comedy in this didn't work, and it was too weird or too wacky or too goofy. But for the most part, there was quite a bit of, you know, funny things that I thought were, you know, there were quite a bit of like funny instances in the movie that I actually enjoyed. So yeah, at the end of the day, the comedy worked for the most part. So, you know, I'm not, it didn't ruin the movie. Like I said, I enjoyed this movie, but it was just not as good as Piranha 3D. Another point that I want to get into is, when I was watching the movie, there's this instance where this one character is like hooking up with this girl, and then a piranha comes out of her vagina and like bites the tip of his penis off. And that whole sequence, like immediately when that sequence started, I thought it was a dream sequence. And as it went along, I kept thinking like, when are the characters gonna wake up? When are we gonna, you know, when are they gonna reveal that this is a dream sequence? Because the way it was, like all the dialogue in that sequence was weird. Like the girl just immediately, you know, wants to have sex with this guy, and she's coming on so strong. And I thought it was a dream, because usually you see that in movies where like a girl is like, you're like dreaming about a girl crushing on a girl, and you know, you want to have sex with her, and then you kind of like dream that she's just like so into you and she just wants to have sex like right away. That's why I thought it was a dream sequence. And then just all these like wacky events, like she has like a piranha come out of her vagina, and I was like, this has to be a dream sequence. And then the one guy, he gets like, you know, the tip of his penis bitten off, and then it's crazy. Like the way it was acted, all the dialogue and all the wacky stuff that was happening, I thought that was a dream sequence the whole time. But then when like the movie went on, and I just realized like that was part of the movie, that was kind of jarring to me. I didn't like that didn't, it wasn't, it didn't like ruin the movie. It didn't, but it like that whole sequence just didn't gel with me. Like the whole time I thought it was a dream sequence. I don't know if a lot of people like feel the same way, but when I was watching that whole sequence, I don't know, just the way it was set up, it felt like a dream sequence. And then when I realized it wasn't, I was like, whoa, like it just, I don't know, it took me a second to like recalibrate. I'm like, okay, that's the movie. Like it's just craziness. But yeah, I mean the movie gets crazier and crazier as it goes. So then it kind of all blends together. It works out. So it's all good. And then last couple points here. So the sheriff's partner from the previous movie returns later on in this movie. His name's Deputy Fallon, and now he has prosthetic legs. He has titanium legs, and he's scared to go in the pool, and and he keeps saying to himself, he's like, I'm not afraid of no punk ass water. And even though his character didn't have that much to do in the previous movie, I just thought he was so badass in that sequence where he's just mowing down piranhas with the boat propeller. In this movie, I mean, not only does he have funny dialogue where he's talking about punk ass water, but he once the piranhas start attacking everyone in the pool, we find out he has like his prosthetic legs are shotgun legs, and he's just mowing down piranhas with these shotgun legs. I mean, that's awesome. Once again, his little sequence is action packed, badass, and just kind of funny too. And his buddy asked him after, he's like, how'd you get the money to buy shotgun legs? He's like, from all the money I saved on socks. So I like that his character returned. Like I said, he wasn't a huge character in the last one, but the little part that he was in was fantastic. So I really liked his return. That was a badass sequence. Shotgun legs for the win. That was excellent. And then I also want to mention, so David Hasselhoff is in this movie, and he plays himself, but he's kind of playing like a parody of himself, where he's this washed up star, and he's just like in the hotel room. He's got like models on models. He's really like self-absorbed and narcissistic, and he's getting paid to come to the water park for the new grand opening, and he's like, man, this is rock bottom. Like he's like, I think I already said this, but he's like washed up, and he's just like a total a-hole. Like there's this one kid who doesn't know who he is. He's like, you don't know who I am? He's like, you don't know Knight Rider? You don't know Baywatch? You don't know the SpongeBob movie? Which is fun that he mentioned the SpongeBob movie, because I remember him being in the SpongeBob movie, and his scene was like so funny. He was like doing like that like Terry Crews peck dance with his pecs or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, I thought that was really funny that he was able to kind of play this, fictional version of himself and make fun of himself. His character was really funny, and yeah, I thought I would mention him because he was like a pretty fun part of the movie. But yeah, overall, I would recommend this movie. It's, going in, you have to know it's a different tone than the last one. But like I said, there was a lot that I liked. I thought for the most part the comedy worked. There were some action-packed sequences, not as much as the previous movie, and a lot of the action was kind of, it was kind of presented in more of a comedic way. But basically this movie was directed by John Gallagher. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he's the son of Clu Gallagher, who was in the first Return of the Living Dead movie. But anyways, this John Gallagher gentleman, he directed all the Feast movies, and I reviewed those movies on the channel. If you have ever seen any of the Feast movies, especially like part 2 and 3, they're very close in tone to this. So if you're a fan of those movies, you'll like this, because this, it's the same director and it has his same style. But I liked this more than I like the Feast movies, because the Feast movies, the sequels were okay. I wasn't the biggest fan of them, but this this movie was more enjoyable than the Feast movies, but it had that same over-the-top comedy. So, yeah, like I said, I had a pretty good time with this. I would recommend it. You know, just don't if you're a fan of Part 3D, like, you just got to know it's a totally different tone, and you got to be prepared for a silly movie, but it's a fun time. It's a fun time. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Check it out. It's free on Tubi right now. But anyways, that's all I got to say about Piranha 3DD, aka Piranha Double D. So I'm going to head out here. Thank you all for watching. Peace out.